My teacher let 3 rich kids turn me into their personal homework engine. They skipped every single meeting, didn't lift a finger, and somehow still got the same grade I did. When I called it out in front of the entire class, he just smirked and said, "Well, congrats. You finally found a way to be useful." I just stood there stunned. That was 2 months ago. Yesterday, he got dragged out of a PTA meeting in handcuffs, screaming, "I built this school!" Mr. Jordan had this infamous rule. Everyone in a group project gets the same grade, no matter what. He wore tailored suits every day like he was teaching at Harvard. And if you ever questioned his logic, he'd hit you with, "That's how the real world works. If you can't handle it, you'll probably end up on the streets." I figured it wouldn't be my problem. My friends and I always shared the workload evenly. That changed the moment he announced the phrase every student dreads, assigned group projects. I crossed every finger I had, but still ended up paired with the laziest trio in class. You know the type? Always smelled like a sketchy incense shop, treated school like a background task, and thought a GPA of 1.5 was a lifestyle choice. I ran up to Mr. Jordan after class and practically begged him to bend his rule just this once. He raised one yellow-stained finger and said slowly, "No. Exceptions. Ever. Don't like it? There's the door." As if I could actually leave. Thanks for the illusion of choice. I was done letting this slide, so I started documenting everything. Week 1. I scheduled a team meeting. No one answered. I spammed the group chat with stickers until someone finally responded. We agreed on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Spoiler, nobody showed, but I had my screenshots. In our shared doc, I was the only contributor. They didn't even bother putting their names on it. Occasionally, they'd pop into the group chat to mock me, calling me the team servant or saying how hot it was that I did everything. I smiled and kept the receipts, because I knew I was building something bigger. That's when I did something wild. I read the student handbook. After a forest's worth of paper cuts and a few near naps, I found gold. District Policy 4.7. When documented disparity exceeds 40%, individual grading must be considered. I had just found my ammo, so I went all in. I perfected the project, kept replying to their chats, dropping casual reminders that I was the only reason they'd pass. And then, the big day arrived. We had to present in class. The 3 freeloaders basically read off the slides. We all got A's. That's when I spoke up. "Mr. Jordan, I did over 40% of the work. They don't deserve the same grade." He tried to shut it down, repeating his rule like a script. That's when I pulled up a second slideshow, one nobody saw coming. It started with the very school rule I dug up. His face dropped. I showed the group chat receipts, doc file history, even photos of me working solo. It was a full case file. He walked to his desk, pulled out the same handbook, and reread the rule. Then he looked at me and said, "In 25 years, no one's ever called me out with this. You're the first." He gave me an A+. The others? Failed. Hard. But just when I thought I'd won, the next day everything flipped. I got called out in the hallway, not by students, by police. They said there'd been an anonymous tip. Something illegal had been stashed in my locker. I stood frozen, my backpack slipping off my shoulder as the hallway around me fell silent and phones started recording. "You the student assigned to locker 247? One officer asked. I nodded, confused. He told me to open it. My hands trembled as I spun the lock. Inside? Just my usual chaos. Books, papers, wrappers. Then he reached behind a chemistry binder. The officer pulled out one of my textbooks. And from behind it, a clear plastic bag filled with white powder. "Is this yours?" he asked, holding it up. "No!" I nearly shouted. "I've never seen that before. Someone must have put it there." But the second officer was already pulling out cuffs. "You'll need to come with us." As they walked me down the hallway, everything felt unreal. Then I spotted them, 2 people leaning against the water fountain. I recognized their faces, even though I'd never paid them much attention before. One was the janitor, a guy in his 20s who always wore a backwards cap. The other was the office assistant from student records. Both of them were watching me, and they were smiling. That's when it clicked. The janitor? He looked exactly like one of the slackers I'd exposed. Same tired eyes, same crooked nose, and the office assistant had a birthmark on her neck. Just like one of the others. They were related. At the station, I sat alone in an interrogation room for what felt like forever. My parents finally arrived, my mom crying, my dad pacing, and already on the phone with a lawyer. When the detective came in, he looked unimpressed. "So, you're saying someone planted this stuff in your locker?" "Yes," I said. "I think it was retaliation. Those students I exposed? Their siblings work at the school. He raised an eyebrow. That's quite the theory. It's not a theory, I insisted. They look exactly alike. We'll look into it, he said. But I could tell he didn't believe a word. They let me go after processing, but not without informing me that I was suspended indefinitely. The car ride home was dead silent, aside from my mom quietly crying in the passenger seat. That night, I couldn't sleep. All I could think about were their smirks, the timing, how clean and calculated it all was. I grabbed my laptop. By then, social media had already blown up. Videos of me in cuffs, rumors flying. One post claimed I'd been supplying students for months. I felt sick. I found the janitor first. His name was Tyler. His last name matched one of the slackers. On his Instagram, photos with his younger brother. One post said, "Nobody messes with family." I kept digging and eventually found the office assistant. Her name was Sarah, older sister to another one of the students I'd reported. On her Facebook, a post from yesterday read, "Karma always finds the loud ones." I screenshotted everything and sent it to my parents. My dad just sighed. "We need more than screenshots," he said. "Police won't act on that alone." The next morning, I tried calling the school, hoping they'd listen. But when I finally got the principal on the line, he cut me off fast. "We take these situations very seriously," he said coldly. "The substance was in your locker. That's what matters. But sir, I can prove it was planted. These staff members..." "Enough," he snapped. "Focus on your legal defense, not baseless accusations." I hung up, heart pounding. Then I got a text. No name, just a message. "This is what happens when you mess with family. Drop it, or it gets worse." I showed my parents. This time, they were really shaken. My dad called the lawyer again. My mom didn't let go of my hand for hours, but things did get worse. My social media accounts started posting on their own. Stuff I never wrote. Messages, photos, offers. I changed every password, but somehow the posts kept coming. Then came the phone calls, blocked numbers, altered voices, threats. "You ruined their future. Now we ruin yours. This is just the beginning." We gave everything to the police. Still, they claimed none of it could connect back to the planted evidence. One officer even suggested it was rival dealers framing me. I wanted to scream. That's when I remembered. The school had security cameras. There had to be footage. Our lawyer filed a request. 2 days later, we got a reply. "The system malfunctioned last week. No footage available." How convenient. I was about to give up until I got a DM from someone named McCatherine. She'd graduated 2 years ago. "I heard what happened," she wrote. "The exact same thing happened to me. Mr. Jordan's project rule screwed me too. When I pushed back, someone planted stuff in my car." "Can we talk?" I called her immediately. On screen, her face appeared, tired, serious. Despite everything, I stayed focused. I had already seen how things spiraled after those slackers flunked. First came rumors, then hacked accounts, and eventually pills were found in my car during a random search. "What happened to you?" I asked McCatherine, leaning toward my screen. "They arrested me," she said flatly. "I lost my scholarship. My parents burned through their savings on legal fees, and we never proved it was planted. The stress tore my whole family apart. I've been trying to expose this for years, but no one ever believes me." Then she added something that made my heart race. "You're not the only one. I found 6 others. Same thing. All of them challenged Mr. Jordan's group project rule. All of them ended up with planted evidence just like us." I leaned back in my chair, stunned. "We need to bring this out. Document everything. Bring everyone together." She gave me a tired look. "Most of them just want to forget. But 3 of us are still fighting. Can you meet tomorrow?" I turned to my parents, who were standing in the doorway listening. My dad gave a slow, steady nod. The next afternoon, I met McCatherine at a downtown coffee shop. With her were 2 guys, Benj and Jaime. Benj looked like a bundle of nerves in human form. Jaime? Like he hadn't slept in a week. "He's been doing this for years," Benj said, laying out folders across the table. "My case was 4 years ago. Same pattern. I got my group members failed, and suddenly I was the one under investigation." Jaime nodded. 3 years for me, but it's not just revenge. I started digging and found something worse." He pulled out a tablet and showed us rows of spreadsheets. "Every year, students with failing grades magically pass, all of them in Mr. Jordan's group projects. And they all have one thing in common. Wealthy parents. You think he's being paid off? McCatherine asked. I don't think. I know, Jaime replied. Their grades jump just enough to keep them in school. And the smart kid in the group? Always the one doing the heavy lifting. If they resist, they get crushed, I said. Exactly, Benj finished. Framed, isolated, discredited. The planted evidence isn't just payback. It's a message to anyone who thinks of pushing back. For hours we went through their proof. Photos of Mr. Jordan meeting parents at upscale restaurants, suspicious bank activity synced with grading periods, and a pattern of intimidation so calculated it couldn't be a coincidence. We need hard proof, McCatherine said. Something they can't ignore. Then it hit me. Parent-teacher conferences were next week. If shady deals were happening, that's when it would go down. Jaime's eyes lit up. We could record it. But they check bags at the front now, Benj reminded us. I paused. Then maybe we don't use the front. We spent the next few days planning every detail. McCatherine still had connections at the school. Jaime had experience with discrete recording tech. Benj knew the layout better than most staff. Meanwhile, things on my end got worse. The principal officially recommended expulsion. My social media accounts kept getting hijacked. And Tyler and Sarah? They were openly posting smug captions about justice served. But we didn't let it shake us. The night before the conference, we ran a test. It had to be flawless. Then came the night. I couldn't step on school property, so I stayed in Jaime's car, watching the live feed on his laptop. McCatherine posed as a substitute teacher with borrowed credentials. Benj pretended to be janitor in training. They slipped tiny cameras into Mr. Jordan's classroom and the hallway outside. By 6 p.m., parents started arriving. For the first hour, everything was normal. Then they showed up. Tyler and Sarah, flanked by their parents, who looked exactly like older versions of the slackers. Same smug faces, same flashy outfits that screamed, "New money!" "Audio's good," I whispered into my phone, linked to McCatherine's earpiece. Inside, their parents sat across from Mr. Jordan. The conversation started like any other, talking about the kids' grades. "As you can see," Mr. Jordan said, pointing to the printouts, "they're both struggling." Their dad leaned back casually. "That's why we're here. We had an arrangement, remember?" Mr. Jordan looked uneasy. "Of course, but things have gotten complicated. The student who caused the disruption..." "Handled," the mother interrupted. "We're here to talk solutions." She opened her purse. "How much to fix this?" "Standard rate is $5,000 each, but considering the heat, $15,000 total." Without blinking, she pulled out an envelope. The dad followed with a checkbook. "This better guarantee they pass." "It always has, Mr. Egg," Jordan replied with a smile. Then Sarah chimed in. "What about the one causing all the noise? The investigation?" "That'll fade," Mr. Jordan waved a hand. "Anyone who fights the system doesn't last long. We made sure of that." Tyler laughed. "A kid should have stayed quiet." "Just make sure it doesn't come back to the school," Mr. Jordan warned. "I can't shield you if you're sloppy." "Relax," Sarah scoffed. "We wiped the camera system ourselves. No one's ever gonna prove anything." I was shaking, not from fear, from rage and relief, because this time they were the ones being recorded. We had it. Everything. The bribe recordings ended with handshakes, fake smiles, and envelope after envelope casually handed over like it was nothing. By the end of the night, Mr. Jordan had pocketed over $50,000, and we had every moment on video. But we weren't done. Not even close. The next morning, we met up at McCatherine's apartment. Jaime had stayed up all night editing the footage, creating encrypted backups and uploading them to multiple cloud services. Still, we had to be smart about what came next. "We can't just hand this to Principal Martinez," Benj said, pacing the room. "He already shut you down once. What if he's part of it too?" "When I tried reporting my case, the administration buried everything," McCatherine added. "We need to go over his head." "The school board?" I suggested. "They meet next Thursday," Jaime frowned. "That's over a week away. A lot can go wrong in that time." And he was right. That same afternoon, our lawyer called. The prosecutor was officially filing charges. If it stuck, I'd be labeled a criminal, juvenile detention, a record that could ruin everything. "The videos help," my mom said quietly at dinner, barely touching her food. "But they'll say it's out of context." Then McCatherine looked up suddenly. "Yearbooks. If this has been going on for years, we can trace it." The next morning, while my parents met with lawyers, I headed to the public library with Benj. We pulled every yearbook from the last 10 years and flipped through them page by page. Here, Benj whispered, tapping a photo. Marcus Chen, class of 2019, honor roll, then suddenly expelled for possession charges. I remembered him. He had published an article in the school paper criticizing Mr. Jordan's grading policy. We found 12 more cases. Students who spoke out, then got railroaded. Some were expelled, some arrested. Others lost scholarships. A few never recovered. I photographed every page. We have to find them, I said. Already on it, Jaime texted. 3 of them agreed to meet. That evening, Tyler showed up at my house. My parents weren't home. I watched silently through the peephole as he rang the bell again and again. I know you're in there, he called. Just letting you know, backing off now would be smart. My family has reach. You don't want to find out how far. I recorded it on my phone. Didn't say a word, but I couldn't deny it. He was getting to me. 2 days later, our car wouldn't start. Sugar in the gas tank. Then the internet stopped working. Then the power company claimed we hadn't paid the bill, even though we had the receipt in hand. They're trying to wear us down, my dad muttered while fixing the fuse box. Make it so frustrating that we walk away. Instead, it made us push harder. McCatherine arranged for us to meet 3 former students, now victims, face to face, away from school and away from danger. We met in a quiet community center on the other side of town. Marcus Chen looked older than his years. I lost a full scholarship to MIT, he said softly. My parents used up everything on legal defense. I do construction now. Alicia Patel sat beside him. The charges stuck. No college would touch me. I'm taking online courses now, trying to rebuild something. David Kim's story was the most haunting. My little sister had Mr. Jordan the year after I got expelled. She wouldn't speak up about anything. She was too scared. She just kept her head down and let everyone copy her. Each of them had evidence. Emails, school records, even photos of Mr. Jordan meeting with wealthy parents. The pattern was undeniable. Would you speak at the board meeting? I asked. Marcus hesitated. I've tried to move on. But they haven't, Alicia cut in. They're still doing it, right now. Next year it'll be someone else. After a long pause, they agreed. The next few days were a blur of planning. Jaime built a timeline showing the rise of fake grades. Benj organized financial documents. McCatherine worked with the witnesses, preparing them for what to expect. But Tyler and Sarah weren't done. The intimidation escalated. Dead animals started appearing on our doorstep. My mom's coworkers received anonymous emails accusing her of mental instability. My dad's boss got phone calls calling me a criminal. Then came the breaking point. Jaime called, panicked. They got to Benj. His parents got fake photos, ones that make it look like he's involved in serious crimes. They're terrified. He's out. We need him, I said, heart sinking. They're immigrants, Jaime said quietly. They're afraid of losing everything. He can't risk it. We were down one, but we couldn't stop. The school board meeting was 3 days away. That's when Mr. Jordan made his next move. He scheduled a parent-teacher conference with my parents. He claimed he wanted to resolve things peacefully. They were suspicious but agreed, hoping to gather more information. I stayed outside, sitting in the car, my phone recording the audio through a cracked window. Through the car window, I could see Mr. Jordan performing his act, offering tissues, putting on a show of fake sympathy. 20 minutes later, my parents returned. My mom was crying. He said he could make it all disappear, my dad said grimly. Drop the accusations, accept the suspension, and the charges vanish. Claims he has friends in the prosecutor's office. You didn't agree, right? I asked. Of course not, he replied. But he's right about one thing. This is bigger than just him. There's a whole system protecting this. That night, I couldn't focus. Every step forward was met with something darker. Then a message popped up on my phone. Check your email, now. From a burner account. Subject line, you're not the only ones watching. Attached was a single image. Mr. Jordan at an ATM, depositing what looked like a large check. But it wasn't just him. Look at the reflection, Jaime texted. I zoomed in. Standing next to him, reflected in the metal, Principal Martinez. Everything snapped into place. His indifference. The lost camera footage. The blocked attempts to report anything. He wasn't just protecting Jordan, he was part of it. This changes everything, Jaime said when we jumped on a call. We can't go to the board if he's in on it. He'll bury it before we say a word. Then we take it public, McCatherine said. Let the media handle it. I paused. That's what they expect. We stick to the board plan, but we add insurance. The next 48 hours were a frenzy. We made backup copies of every file. McCatherine's contact at a local news station agreed to hold a sealed envelope, set to be opened if anything happened to us. Jaime set up a dead man's switch. If he didn't log in every 12 hours, everything would go public. The night before the meeting, I barely slept. Tyler and Sarah had gone quiet. And somehow, that was worse than the threats. The next morning, another message came in. Final warning, stay home tonight. I showed my parents. My mom reached for the phone to call the police again. My dad stopped her. They've done nothing so far. Tonight, we end this. We arrived early at the district office. The meeting was public, but we needed front row seats. McCatherine was already there with Marcus, Alicia, and David. Jaime sat near the back, laptop ready. Then I saw them. Tyler, Sarah, their parents, all seated up front. Principal Martinez shaking hands with board members like they were lifelong friends. Mr. Jordan leaning back in the corner, looking smug as ever. They're here to discredit us, McCatherine whispered. The meeting started with the usual formalities. Budgets, policy updates, until they opened the floor to public comments. I raised my hand. Yes? The board president, an older woman with silver hair, looked at me. I stood, legs trembling. My name is... I began. And I have evidence of organized corruption at our high school. Gasps filled the room. Martinez started to rise, but the board president raised her hand, cutting him off. Let them speak. I told my story. The project. The setup. The intimidation. Then McCatherine stepped forward. Then Marcus. Then Alicia. Then David. Each story added another layer. Do you have proof? One board member finally asked. We do, I said. Jaime connected his laptop to the projector. The first slide, a timeline. 13 students in 10 years, all silenced. Then came the financials. Check images, deposit dates, matching patterns, and finally, the recordings. The usual rate is $5,000 per student. Tyler's father leapt up. That's illegal recording! Inadmissible! This isn't a courtroom, the board president snapped. Sit down. We played more clips. Sarah bragging about wiping footage, Tyler mocking me, Mr. Jordan negotiating payments with parents. Then came the photo of the ATM. Principal Martinez's face drained of color. This is fake. Edited, he stammered. Is it? McCatherine asked, stepping forward with a folder. Because we have matching bank records. Care to explain the deposits? The room erupted in whispers. Phones were out, parents recording. Some were visibly furious. Mr. Jordan stood up, face red. This is a witch hunt, just bitter students lashing out. Then you won't mind if we audit your records, the board president replied. 10 years of group project grades. Let's review everything. I need to speak to my union rep. I'm sure you do. She turned. Principal Martinez, you are suspended, effective immediately, pending investigation. He didn't speak. He didn't move. Tyler and Sarah's parents began shouting about lawsuits. Other parents demanded answers. Security had to escort people out. And through it all, I sat in my chair, relieved but hollow. Because justice? It hadn't fixed the damage, but for the first time in years, it had finally started to speak. We'd done it. The truth was out. But as we stepped into the parking lot, Tyler blocked my path. You think you won? He hissed. That recording was illegal. My family will destroy you in court. And those charges against you? Still standing. I surprised even myself with how calm I felt. Maybe, I said. But now everyone knows the truth. Sarah stormed up beside him, face tight with rage. You ruined everything. My brother's future, Mr. Jordan's career. Because you couldn't handle doing a group project? Before I could respond, McCatherine stepped forward. No, she said firmly. Because you ruined lives to protect a corrupt system. And that ends now. They walked off, furious. But I knew it wasn't over. Investigations take time. Legal battles drain families. And the charges against me hadn't disappeared yet. But for the first time since that hallway confrontation, I felt something new. Hope. The system that had crushed so many students, it was finally being exposed. On the drive home, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from students sharing similar experiences, parents demanding grade reviews, even teachers finally stepping forward with things they'd been afraid to say for years. You did good, my dad said quietly from the driver's seat, eyes meeting mine in the mirror. It's not over, I reminded him. No, my mom added, but it's a beginning. The weeks that followed were chaos. Legal threats, interviews, more attempts to discredit us. But we'd built something powerful, a coalition of voices that refused to stay silent. McCatherine launched a support network for affected students. Jaime built a website documenting every piece of corruption we'd uncovered. Marcus, Alicia, and David became local advocates for academic fairness. The foundation of their empire was cracking. More parents started asking hard questions. More teachers began speaking out. Tyler and Sarah didn't stop trying to intimidate us, but it felt hollow now, like they knew the tide had turned. 3 weeks after the board meeting, our lawyer called. The prosecutor's dropping the charges, he said. Turns out the officer who found the substances in your locker has ties to Tyler's family. Internal Affairs has opened a case. I sank onto my bed, overwhelmed by relief. Not victory yet, but progress. That same evening, Mr. Jordan was arrested on bribery charges. Principal Martinez resigned before the school board could fire him. A full overhaul of group project policies and grading transparency was announced. But the most unexpected moment came at a grocery store. A freshman girl recognized me. You're the one who stood up to Mr. Jordan, right? She said, eyes wide. Because of you, our teacher changed the group project rules. I don't have to carry my whole team anymore. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about clearing my name. It wasn't just about punishment. It was about changing the system. The fight wasn't over. There would be courtrooms, testimonies, people who still refused to believe. But looking at that girl, grateful, empowered, I knew every threat, every sleepless night, every second of doubt had been worth it. We had given students something I never had. A chance, a voice, and a little bit of hope. The next morning, I woke up to a banging at our front door. Black SUVs parked outside. My dad opened the door to federal agents. They showed their badges, explaining they'd been monitoring the case. Our evidence had triggered a statewide investigation into academic corruption. They needed everything. Jaime showed up with hard drives. McCatherine brought boxes of files. Our dining room turned into an evidence command center. This runs deeper than you know, the lead agent told us. Your teacher wasn't acting alone. We've identified similar patterns in 12 other districts. That afternoon, federal investigators arrived at our school, pulled files, interviewed staff. Students texted me updates nonstop. Tyler and Sarah, escorted off campus by security. That evening, the district held an emergency assembly. The superintendent himself spoke. Every grade from the last 5 years will be reviewed. Any student who believes they were treated unfairly will have their case reopened. But the siblings didn't go quietly. That night, a brick shattered our living room window. A note attached read, "Federal case or not, this isn't over." My parents wanted us to leave town. I refused. We'd come too far to run now. The next morning, news vans lined the school sidewalk. Journalists interviewed students. Someone had leaked part of our recordings, and they'd already gone viral. McCatherine called an emergency strategy session. We need to control the story. If we don't, they will. Jaime finalized a public timeline and launched the site. Marcus, Alicia, and David agreed to do a joint interview with a major outlet. We focused on the bigger picture, the broken system, not personal revenge. 3 days later, it all came crashing down. Tyler and Sarah were arrested. Tampering with evidence, witness intimidation, online harassment. Their parents tried to pull strings, called lawyers. But with federal agents involved, there was no cover left to hide under. And in court, more truth surfaced. Sarah confessed. She'd accessed the school's camera system dozens of times using her admin login. Deleted footage. Covered for friends. Not just in my case. Tyler? He admitted to planting evidence in lockers belonging to at least 4 other students. And as their world crumbled, ours stood taller. Not just because we won, but because we proved the system could change. One story at a time. They denied bail. The judge called them a flight risk. Tyler's parents screamed about injustice and conspiracies, but this time, no one was listening. The deeper the investigation went, the worse it got. More teachers were implicated. Some had taken smaller payments to inflate grades. Others had quietly allowed evidence to be planted without saying a word. The entire system was compromised. Then came the call I'd been waiting for. My lawyer. The district attorney is clearing your record. Full expungement. It'll be like it never happened. But even as my name was cleared, my reputation was still recovering. At school, it was mixed. Some treated me like a hero. Others whispered behind my back, "Snitch." All that over a group project. I tried to focus on schoolwork, but the hallways were filled with tension. Federal agents were interviewing students. Teachers were visibly anxious, and no one knew who would be questioned next. 2 weeks later, Principal Martinez was arrested at home. Authorities found over $200,000 in cash hidden in his basement. The money trail connected directly to parent donations and off-the-record payments. The board held another emergency session. This time, the entire auditorium was overflowing. Parents demanded transparency. Teachers begged for protection if they chose to speak up. Students, led by ones like us, organized protests for grading reform and fairness. McCatherine and I testified again, this time with federal agents at our side. We laid it all out. The history, the manipulation, the futures that were thrown away just to maintain a power structure. How many students walked away from education altogether? McCatherine asked the board. How many were silenced just for refusing to carry the load for others? The board voted unanimously to implement sweeping reforms. Individual accountability in group work, anonymous systems for grade disputes, routine financial audits for faculty, and a full ban on parent donations. It was everything we'd worked for. But the celebration was bittersweet. Because Marcus? Still working construction instead of walking the halls of MIT. Alicia? Still fighting the stain on her record. Taking classes online because universities turned her away. The policies changed, but the damage, for many, was forever. A month later, Mr. Jordan's trial began. The courthouse was packed. Cameras, reporters, protesters. We had to take the stand. Again. Relive every detail. Again. Mr. Jordan cracked for the first time. He claimed he was helping students, that the money paid for medical bills, that we'd all misunderstood his intentions. The prosecution destroyed him. Bank records, photos from beach resorts, high-end purchases. It wasn't help. It was greed. The jury deliberated less than 2 hours. The verdict? Guilty on all counts. 27 charges of bribery, 12 more for conspiracy. An additional time for failing to report when he knew students were being framed. At sentencing, victims gave impact statements. Marcus spoke about shattered dreams. Alicia shared the mental toll. David's sister spoke about the fear that never left her. Mr. Jordan was sentenced to 15 years. He left the courtroom in cuffs. The designer suits were gone. So was the smirk. Next came Tyler and Sarah. Their lawyers tried everything. Entrapment, peer pressure, shifting blame. None of it stuck. The case was airtight. Tyler got 7 years. Sarah got 5. Their parents wept in court, but I couldn't feel sorry. They'd raised their kids to believe money could buy anything, including other people's futures. The final report from the investigation was staggering. 53 students had been targeted over 15 years. Millions had changed hands. And a generation of kids had been taught that corruption was just how the system worked. That system? Gone. The district overhauled grading policies. Teacher ethics training became mandatory. Donations were banned. Every group project required individual assessments. And other districts followed. Our case became a national example. McCatherine was invited to speak at education reform conferences. Jaime's website became a tool for students across the country. Even Marcus found new purpose, launching a nonprofit to help students who had been similarly wronged. 6 months after that first board meeting, I graduated. The ceremony didn't feel real. New policies, new leadership, new hope. Mr. Jordan's old classroom? It had been turned into a student advocacy center. My parents cried as I crossed the stage. They'd spent months enduring threats, court dates, media chaos, but they never stopped believing in me. Afterward, my dad pulled me into a hug. It was worth it. That summer, college acceptance letters started coming in. Journalism programs, ethics scholarships. Every letter saw past the rumors and recognized the truth behind the story. I picked a school known for investigative reporting because I had learned the power of telling the right story at the right time. Before I left, I met again with the freshman who had once stopped me in the grocery store. She was starting a student rights club because of us. Any advice? She asked. Document everything, I said. Find people who care, know your rights, and never believe the system can't be changed. Weeks later, the federal investigation wrapped. The fallout was massive. Dozens of administrators across 12 school districts faced charges. New federal rules were issued for educational transparency. Our story made national headlines. Tyler and Sarah's families quietly moved out of state. Their house sold quickly. No one mentioned its past. The school hired new staff. Fresh faces, fresh start. On my last day in town, I drove past the high school. Students were filing in for the new year, faces younger than mine, but full of hope. That afternoon, McCatherine messaged me. She'd been accepted to law school, education law. Jaime was developing software to help students report academic abuse. Alicia was doing outreach for scholarship reform. Marcus's nonprofit had helped its first 30 students. We'd all found our own path, shaped by what happened, but not defined by it. My first week at college, a professor announced a group project. My stomach tensed on instinct, but then he said, "Your grades will reflect your individual contribution, fair, detailed, and accountable." And for the first time in a long time, I smiled, because this time it really was.